Simone woke before sunrise, her body tired, but her mind alert. She worked as a school bus driver in Pine Grove, a small town where everyone knew each other's name. Her alarm rang at 5:15, and she hauled herself out of bed, careful not to wake. Her young daughter, Mia, the two shared a tiny apartment near the bus depot. Simone brushed her teeth quickly, tied her hair into a neat bun, slipped into her uniform a green polo shirt and navy pants. She kissed Mia on the forehead and slipped out the door, clutching her travel mug of black coffee. The morning air was cool as Simone climbed into her old sedan. The engine rumbled to life, and she adjusted the mirror, scanning the empty street. She had 50 stops to make before reaching the school, and every child's safety mattered to her. Simone loved her job because she could start each day helping families. She drove through quiet neighborhoods, stopping to scoop up sleepy children in pajamas and fuzzy slippers. She greeted every child with a gentle good morning, and the kids responded with shy smiles and sleepy waves. By the time she dropped off the last student, the sun was higher, and the town had come alive. Cars filled Main Street, and shopkeepers opened their doors. Simone felt the familiar swell of pride. She was part of this community. But that morning, she realized her gas tank was near empty. The fuel gauge hovered on E, blinking. Normally, she stopped by the depot station to refuel before her shift ended. Today, though, she had a meeting with a parent at the school, and she did not want to be late. After her meeting ran late, Simone climbed back into her car and headed for the station on Elm Street. There she saw a tall man in a faded denim jacket with strange patches. He stood beside a sleek motorcycle, a heavy Harley with chrome that gleamed in the morning light, his jacket red iron across the back, and the patch below said Hell's Angels. His face was weathered, with lines around his eyes that spoke of long rides and countless miles traveled. He leaned over the pump, counting coins in his hand. Simone parked her car and stepped out. She could feel the warmth of the sun on her skin as she walked past. Marcus LeBlanc, the man known as Iron. She recognized him because the Hells Angels bike club sometimes roared through Pine Grove on charity rides. Marcus looked surprised when Simone approached. "Morning," she said. "Need a hand?" He shook his head, counting coins slowly, his expression tight. "Just short a few dollars," he muttered, eyes downcast. Simone studied the amount on the pump. It read $25. Marcus had 22 in coins. She nodded, understanding. She dug for her wallet and tapped her card at the pump. The click of approval followed. "There you go," she said, stepping back. Marcus looked up, astonishment mixing with gratitude. He shifted his weight, helmet in hand. "I can't accept this," he said softly. "It's too much." Simone shrugged. "It's just gas. We all need some help now and then." Her voice was calm, friendly. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. The morning light caught on his silver hair at the temples. He realized her kindness came without condition. "I could offer something in return," he said. Simone smiled, shaking her head again. "No need. Just pay it forward if you get the chance." With that, she turned and walked back to her car, slipping behind the wheel. Before she started the engine, she glanced at Marcus through her windshield. He lifted his hand in a small wave. Simone drove away, the engine humming as she merged onto Elm Street. She thought about Marcus and his bike, the way the sun made the chrome glow like silver. She wondered what it felt like to ride without cares, wind cutting through your jacket. For her, the day would be full of routines. Picking up Mia from daycare, cooking dinner, checking homework. That something lighter warmed her heart. The feeling that a small act of kindness could matter, even to a tough biker from a club with a fearsome name. Back at school that afternoon, she finished her rounds and then headed home. Mia greeted her at the door, hugging her mother tight. Simone asked about her day, listened to stories of finger paints and playground games, and tucked her into bed, with a bedtime snack of apple slices. As Mia drifted to sleep, Simone sat in the dim light of the living room, thinking again about the morning. She replayed the moment when Marcus looked at her with surprise and gratitude. She knew she would soon forget the amount she paid, but she trusted that Marcus would remember her smile. Meanwhile, across town, Marcus returned to the Hells Angels clubhouse. It was a converted barn on the outskirts, walls covered in photographs of bikes and past rides. A dozen club members lounged around a long table, sipping coffee and eating donuts. When Marcus walked in, the room fell quiet. His helmet on the table, and reached for a cup. "You won't believe what happened," he said. The members leaned forward, curiosity in their eyes. Marcus described Simone's car, her warm smile, and her simple act of paying for his gas. He spoke of how she refused any favor in return, saying only, "Just pay it forward." He told them how he felt surprised, humbled, almost ashamed that he had hesitated to start the engine. The bikers nodded, recognizing the weight of small gestures. One gruff member, Big Earl, pushed his chair back and said, "That is the real road spirit, Iron. Honor and respect, no matter who's in the saddle." For Marcus, the moments in that clubhouse felt like balm. He realized that his journey as a biker was more than roaring engines and long roads. It was also about connection, respect, and small acts that reminded him of humanity. Simone's kindness broke a barrier between two worlds, hers of routine and family, and his of brotherhood and open highways. That evening, Simone sat on her porch with a cup of tea. The cicadas chirped in the cooling air. She hummed a lullaby her mother used to sing. She did not know that dozens of bikers would remember her kindness at their next meeting. She did not know that Marcus would tell the story again and again, not as gossip, but as an example of how one small choice could change someone's day. Simone only knew she had acted on a simple impulse to help another person in need. She went to sleep. She set the coffee pot for the next morning and checked Mia's school uniform for the next day. She thought of the long road she had traveled as a mother, a worker, and a neighbor. Her life was full of small challenges, flat tires, late payments, and days when worry settled in her chest. But she believed that kindness made the load lighter. She trusted it could ripple out in ways she could not predict. As the night deepened, Simone closed her eyes with a quiet satisfaction. She had done something good that morning. It cost her little but left her feeling rich inside. In the silent dark, the engines of distant motorcycles hummed faintly, carrying stories across open roads. Somewhere in that hum, Simone's kindness glowed like a Bacona reminder that a single moment could forge an unexpected connection. And so, as sleep claimed her, she dreamed of winding highways, friendly faces, and the simple power of a generous heart. Simone woke the next morning to birds chirping outside her window. She stretched under the soft light of dawn and reached for her phone. A quick glance told her Mia had woken early too, so Simone slipped out of bed, careful not to shock her daughter. Awake. She padded into the small kitchen and filled the kettle for tea. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the fridge, the distant sound of cars starting on the street below. While the water boiled, Simone thought about yesterday's moment at the gas station. She smiled as she replayed Marcus's surprise. When she paid for his tank, it felt like a simple thing, a few dollars on her debit card, but her heart still warmed at how much it had meant to him. She hoped he would pay it forward, as she had suggested. Maybe he already had. She poured 2 mugs of tea and carried one to Mia's room. The little girl lay cocooned in her blankets, eyelashes fanning her cheeks as she slept. Simone set the tea on the bedside table and leaned over to kiss Mia's forehead. The warmth of that small gesture made her think about how kindness could travel from one person to another, like gentle ripples on a pond. "Good morning, sunshine," Simone whispered. Mia's eyes fluttered open, and a sleepy smile spread across her face. "Morning, Mama," she mumbled, reaching for her favorite stuffed bunny. Simone helped her onto her feet, and they shared tea and a simple breakfast of toast and jam. They chatted about what Mia wanted to draw that day, a unicorn or maybe a spaceship. Mia decided on a unicorn with rainbow hair, and Simone promised to help her later. After breakfast, Simone got Mia ready for daycare. She brushed her daughter's hair into pigtails, secured with bright pink ribbons. Mia put on her little backpack with a sticker of a smiling sun. "Be good, Mama," she said, planting a quick kiss on Simone's cheek before heading out the door with her nanny. The front door clicked shut, and Simone took a moment to enjoy the stillness of her empty apartment. Simone folded the dish towel and hung it over the sink. She glanced at the clock and realized she had just enough time to swing by the grocery store before heading to work. She loaded her list of simple items, a loaf of bread, eggs, milk, and bananas onto the counter and slipped into her coat. Outside, the morning air felt fresh, scented with dew and the promise of a new day. Meanwhile, across town, the Hells Angels clubhouse stirred to life. The converted barn had a row of antique windows that let in the early light. Inside, Marcus. LeBlanc sat at the long wooden table with his fellow riders. They drank strong coffee from metal mugs, and the smell of frying bacon filled the air. Marcus had barely slept. He kept thinking about Simone's gesture, how it had lifted his spirit in a way nothing else had. "Boss, are you still on that gas station story?" asked Big Earl, a tall man with a booming voice and a beard that reached his chest. He wiped grease from his hands on a rag as he flipped pancakes on a griddle. The other riders chuckled. Marcus looked up and nodded. "Can't help it, that woman. She didn't even know me. And she paid for my gas without asking who I was or why I needed help." A younger rider named Pete shrugged. "She probably saw a guy short on cash. Anyone would have done the same." Marcus shook his head. "No, Pete, it wasn't just that. She looked me in the eye and smiled. She made me feel human, like I mattered." The room fell quiet at that. Riders shifted. In their seats, every one of them knew what it meant to be judged. Some harsh words about outlaw clubs and tough riders. Marcus continued. "I want to find her. I want to say thank you properly. The club owes her that much." Picked up his mug and took a slow sip. Big Earl nodded. "You got my vote. We'll help you find her." Another rider, Slick Rick, raised an eyebrow. "Is this some kind of setup? You want to ambush an innocent lady at her home?" Marcus shook his head. "No tricks. Just respect. If she's okay with it." The riders exchanged looks. They respected Marcus's word when he said something. Needed doing? They did it. They pulled out paper and wrote down details. The gas station's name, Elm Street. The approximate time around 10 in the morning. They tossed ideas back and forth. Most figured she was a school worker, maybe the bus driver they sometimes saw. Someone suggested checking the school parking lot. Another said they could ask around at the donut shop downtown. Simone might stop there after dropping off her bus stop back. At the grocery store, Simone moved slowly down the aisles, selecting her items with care. She paused to chat with the cashier, Mrs. Kahn, who always asked about Mia and commented on how fast she was growing. Simone smiled and answered politely, then slipped out of the store with her bags. She loaded them into the trunk and climbed into the driver's seat. The sky above was pale blue, and the day felt wide open. Her phone buzzed. It was a reminder to call her mother later in the afternoon. Simone tapped the screen and set the reminder for 6 o'clock. She didn't always remember to call her mother. They were close once, before her mother passed away. Simone's memories of those calls were bittersweet. She kept them short, but she wanted to try again, to make them more regular. Simone drove to the bus depot, unloaded her groceries, and then took the old sedan to the fuel pump. The gauge showed a little more than a quarter tank. She topped off the tank without a second thought. After paying, she straightened her shoulders and climbed inside. She thought about yesterday's pump, about Marcus's bike shining under the sun. She wondered if the Hells Angels ever heard stories from the people they helped. Probably not. She reasoned, but she liked to think theirs was a club that valued loyalty and respect. At the depot, Simone prepared for her afternoon route. She checked her schedule, cleaned the windshield, and washed her hands. She lined up the bus by the curb and greeted each child as they boarded. "Hello, Lily. Good to see you again. I'm Mr. Thompson." Their smiles and waves gave her energy. She loved the routine of it, the sense of purpose that came from caring for others. After school, Simone dropped off her last student and watched as parents arrived to collect their children. She locked the bus and breathed deeply, savoring the end of the workday. She climbed back into her car and drove the short distance to Mia's daycare. As she waited in the carpool lane, she thought about making something special for dinner, a simple chicken stir-fry with vegetables. She pictured Mia's face lighting up at the sight of colorful peppers and tender meat. Dinner could be a small meat celebration of their little family making it through another day. When Mia climbed into the car, she waved at drawing a unicorn with rainbow hair on a green hill. "I did this for you," she said proudly. Simone admired the picture and kissed her daughter's forehead. "It's beautiful," she said. Mia beamed, wriggling in her seat. Simone buckled her in and started the engine. As they drove home, Mia chattered about her day, calling Simone the best mama in the whole wide world. Simone laughed and answered every question about the unicorn, about why the sky was blue, about where rainbows came from. In Mia's eyes, her world was full of magic, and Simone was happy to keep it that way for as long as she could. The afternoon sun shone through the car windows, making the air warm and cozy. That evening, Simone cooked dinner while Mia did her homework at the table. They worked together. Simone stirred the stir-fry, and Mia colored another unicorn drawing. The kitchen filled with the sound of soft music playing on the radio and the smell of garlic and onions sizzling in the pan. After dinner, Simone washed the dishes while Mia stacked them in the drainer. They talked and laughed at little things, Mia's new friend at daycare, Simone's fear of spiders, the song playing on the radio as bedtime approached. Simone tucked Mia into bed and read her a story about a brave princess who saved her kingdom. With kindness and apt tale, she thought, given the morning's event. Mia yawned and settled under the covers. Simone kissed her goodnight once more, then left the room, alone on the couch. Simone thought again about Marcus and those riders planning to find her. She didn't know that was happening, but she felt a quiet excitement in her heart, an inkling that something unexpected might come her way. She sipped a cup of herbal tea and closed her eyes, imagining motorcycles riding down Elm Street, engines rumbling like thunder until they reached her small door. In the hush of the apartment, Simone reflected on how small actions could lead to big changes. Her simple act of paying for someone else's gas had set off a chain of events she could not foresee. She felt grateful that she had chosen kindness and wondered what tomorrow would bring. With that thought, she stood, cleaned up her teacup, and headed to bed, ready for whatever surprises the new day would offer. Simone's morning began like any other. The sun peeked through the thin curtains of her bedroom, casting soft lines across the floor. She slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake Mia. In the kitchen, she filled the kettle and waited for the whistle. As the water boiled, she thought about how peaceful the apartment felt in these early hours. Soon, the noise of traffic and children's laughter would fill the halls of Pine Grove, but right now, there was only calm. She carried her tea and sat at the small table by the window. Steam curled from the cup as she took a slow sip, tasting the warmth. Loved this moment of solitude before the day's duties began. She watched a sparrow hop across the windowsill, pecking bits of breakfast. Somewhere in town, Marcus and the Hells Angels bikers were waking up to a very different routine. She smiled at the thought and turned her attention back to her plans for the day. After breakfast, Simone got Mia ready. For daycare, she braided her daughter's hair. She talked gently about the day ahead. Mia giggled when she saw the two ribbons, pink for mornings and purple for bedtime. With Mia bundled into her coat and holding her favorite bunny, Simone walked her to the nanny's car waiting in the parking spot. Mia waved and blew a kiss. Before the door closed behind her, Simone watched until the car drove away, then headed back to her apartment to prepare for work. She gathered her things, lunch, water bottle, and the stack of papers she needed for the parent-teacher meeting later. She slid into her car and drove to the bus depot. On the way, she passed the grocery store where she had shopped yesterday. The sign above the door read "Open Daily." But she decided to wait until after her bus route to buy fresh produce for dinner. Besides, she was eager to see her students and begin the day. At the depot, Simone prepped her bus. She swept the steps, washed the windows, and checked the route sheet. When everything looked ready, she climbed inside and started the engine. The bus rumbled to life, and she felt that familiar sense of responsibility settle in her chest. Pulled out onto the street and made her first stop, where two brothers waited in matching coats. "Good morning, Marcus and Alex," she said, smiling. The boys greeted her with sleepy nods and climbed aboard. "Stop by," stopped Simone, picked up her passengers. Each child had a story. Mia, who had once knitted her a scarf in crayon. Lily, whose laugh was so bright it could chase away any bad mood. Ethan, who always forgot his lunch and traded his apple for cookies. Simone loved them all and greeted each with a friendly word. At the school drop-off, she watched them bounce away in a swirl of backpacks and giggles. Then she parked the bus and headed inside to meet a parent. The parent-teacher meeting went smoothly. Mrs. Delgado, whose son Carlos had struggled with reading, showed Simone the progress he had made. Simone praised his perseverance and promised to continue reading with him during recess. Carlos beamed when he heard that, tall and proud. The meeting lasted until mid-morning, and by then Simone felt a warm glow of accomplishment. She packed up her papers and headed back to the bus to begin her afternoon route. Meanwhile, at the Hells Angels clubhouse on the edge of town, the morning sun streamed through dusty windows. The barn's wooden walls bore the weight of decades of biker history. Photographs of long journeys and old friends lined the walls. A dozen bikes sat in neat rows outside, anxious to return to the open road. Inside, Marcus LeBlanc presided over a gathering of his fellow riders. The long table groaned under pots of coffee and plates of eggs, bacon, and toast. The air was thick, with the smell of grease and leather. Marcus stood at the head of the table, hands folded. He spoke in a low voice so everyone leaned closer. "We're here to talk about Simone Johnson," he said. "The woman who paid for my gas." A ripple ran through the group. Some snorted. Others folded their arms in thought. Big Earl, the club's de facto second-in-command, leaned forward, his bushy beard brushing his chest. "She did what?" he asked, his voice a gravelly rumble. Marcus repeated the story, his words deliberate. When he finished, he met Earl's gaze. Earl nodded slowly. "She's got guts," he said. Coming up to a Hell's Angel at a pump and handing over her card, no fear. Slick Rick, a lean man with tattoos curling around his arms, frowned. "Or she didn't know who you were," he suggested. Marcus shook his head. She knew. She saw the jacket. She saw the patch. The group fell silent at that. They admired courage, but they valued respect even more. Pete, the youngest rider, spoke next. "So what do we do now? Track her down, make her pay somehow." The question drew scowls. Marcus held up a hand. "No tricks. We owe her that kindness." The bikers exchanged glances. A few looked uncertain. Most felt the same way as Marcus, that Simone's gift had rekindled something in them, a reminder of why they rode in the first place. Earl pounded the table. Lightly, "All right then, we do it right. We find her, we thank her, and we leave her be." He looked around the table. Any objections? No one spoke up. One by one, they nodded. It was settled. The riders stood and moved into action. They divided tasks. Who would stake out the bus depot? Who would ask at the grocery store? Who would visit the donut shop downtown? Maps were unfolded, phone numbers shared. A plan formed, precise yet respectful. Back in Pine Grove, Simone stepped off the bus after her final drop-off. The empty vehicle felt too big and quiet, but she liked the solitude. She walked to her car and unlocked it with a click. Inside, her lunch bag sat on the passenger seat, still warm from the morning's leftovers. She stuffed her papers into her backpack and slung it over her shoulder, and she climbed behind the wheel and drove to the grocery store. She parked under a tree whose leaves rustled in the breeze. Inside, the aisles were familiar and comforting. She picked up carrots and broccoli, hoping to make a healthy stir-fry. She grabbed yogurt and granola for breakfast tomorrow. She paused by the bakery section, inhaling the sweet scent of cinnamon rolls, then carried her items to the register. As the cashier scanned her groceries, Simone chatted about the weather and the upcoming town fair. She paid and left, bags in hand. Unbeknownst to Simone, a sleek black motorcycle rolled slowly past the store's windows. The rider wore dark sunglasses and a leather jacket without any patches, blending into the morning crowd. He followed her. Car at a safe distance, careful to avoid drawing attention. Later, when she reached the gas station, he slipped away. His job was just to confirm her route, nothing more. After her grocery run, Simone went home to unload her purchases. A tune as she carried bags inside, then set them on the counter. She rounded up Mia's laundry, which she had left to dry earlier. As she folded tiny shirts and pants, Her phone buzzed with a reminder. Call Mom. She took a breath and dialed her mother's number. The line connected, and her mother's warm voice greeted her. They spoke briefly about family news, and then shared a laugh over a childhood memory. Simone felt a pang of longing for the days when calls were easier, before life's demands grew heavier. She promised to call more often, and ended the call with a heartfelt, I love you. Late afternoon light filtered through the window as Simone prepared to pick up Mia. She poured herself a cup of coffee and took a moment to savor its bitterness. The house felt still, but her mind buzzed with thoughts of the day. She thought about Marcus and his bikers. She wondered if he had spent her $25 on something meaningful, or if he had simply paid his tab and ridden on. She hoped. He remembered her words, pay it forward. The next stop was daycare. She waited in line. She organized Mia's drawings, tucking some into her bag for safekeeping. When Mia hopped into the car, she wielded another unicorn drawing. Look, Mama, she exclaimed. Simone smiled and asked about the day's activities. Mia rattled off names of friends and games she played. The simple joy in Mia's voice made Simone's heart swell. That evening, Simone cooked dinner while Mia ate a quick snack. They worked together at the counter. Simone chopped vegetables. Mia stirred rice in a small pot. The kitchen filled with the smell of garlic and oil. When the food was ready, they sat at the table, plates steaming. They chatted about their plans for Saturday, a trip to the park, and maybe a visit to the fairgrounds to see the animals. Mia clapped her hands at the idea of feeding goats and riding the merry-go-round. As bedtime approached, Simone tucked Mia into bed and read her a story about a brave knight and a clever dragon. Mia yawned halfway through, her eyes heavy with sleep. Simone kissed her goodnight and closed the door gently. Back on the couch, Simone reflected on her day. She had done the same tasks she did every day driving the bus. Meeting parents, caring for Mia, but something felt different. She sensed a shift in the air, as though an unseen breeze was stirring events she could not yet see. She thought of the quiet motorcycle tailing her, of the hushed voices in the clubhouse, of plans being made to find her. A mix of excitement and nerves fluttered in her stomach. She wondered how she would react when a dozen bikers showed up at her door. She sipped her now cold coffee and set the mug aside. Outside, the sky deepened into shades of purple and orange. The cicadas chirped, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Simone closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the fragrant evening air. She whispered a silent thanks for the day's kindnesses, both given and received. Then that night, Simone lay in bed. The morning sunlight filtered through the lace curtains as Simone stretched and sat up in bed. Her body felt rested, as if yesterday's events had filled her with calm resolve. She glanced at the clock. 6:30 a.m. Mia would sleep another half hour, and Simone treasured this time to herself. She rose quietly, slipped on her slippers, and crossed the cool wood floor to the kitchen. She filled the kettle, watched the steam rise, and thought about the day ahead. Today was Saturday. Day without bus routes or parent meetings. It was meant for errands. Errands that would leave her tired but free. She poured herself a cup of tea and carried it outside to the small porch. The air tasted sweet with early spring blossoms. Birds flitted among the branches of the maple tree, and she listened to their morning song. She wrapped her hands around the warm mug and breathed deeply. No roaring engines or hasty goodbyes today, just the gentle rhythm of her breath and the quiet world around her. She thought of Marcus and the Hells Angels Club. She smiled, remembering their kindness plan. Small thrill tickled her mind. It felt good to know she had made a difference. Back inside, Simone laid out her to-do list on the kitchen table. Groceries to restock, laundry to fold, and a call to the apartment office about the leaky faucet. But at the top was one special item: clean the front porch. She wanted her home to look welcoming. She poured more tea, sipped, then filled a bucket with warm, soapy water. Outside, she scrubbed the wooden boards, wiping away dirt and old paint chips. She swept fallen petals from the steps and straightened the potted plants. Each motion felt like care for her own small kingdom. When Mia stirred, Simone carried her tea back inside and knelt by her daughter's bed. She brushed back Mia's hair and tickled her cheek. "Good morning, little one," she whispered. Mia opened her eyes, blinked, and smiled. Simone helped her out of bed, and the two shared a sleep-soft hug, dressed in matching blue sweaters, mom and daughter, a small team ready for the day. Simone braided Mia's hair and taught her how to tie the ribbons into perfect bows. Mia beamed at her reflection, proud of her handiwork. They stepped outside together, hand in hand, and strolled to the corner cafe that sold fresh pastries on weekends. The bell above the door chimed as they entered, and Mrs. Khan greeted them. With warm coffee and 2 almond croissants, Mia sat at the small table by the window, nibbling the flaky pastry, while Simone enjoyed her tea. They talked about the fair in town, how many goats they would see, and which rides they would try first. Mia hopped in her seat at the thought. Of the merry dash-go-dash-round after breakfast, Simone paid, and they walked home. She carried a paper bag of pastries and a small bouquet of wildflowers she had bought from the cafe owner. The apartment smelled of sweetness when she returned. She set Mia up with crayons and paper at the kitchen counter, and the little girl began drawing a group of bikers on horseback. "They look like knights," Mia said. Simone laughed. "Knights of the road," she teased, and they painted helmets. Of rainbow colors, with Mia happily occupied, Simone tackled laundry. She sorted clothes by color, whites in one pile, darks in another. She loaded the washer and watched it spin. Then she folded yesterday's dry clothes, smoothing out wrinkles and stacking shirts neatly. She thought about her small family, herself, a daughter, and the life they built with love and hard work. Thoughts drifted to Marcus again, and the promise of a meeting. Would they come today? She did not know. She felt curious, but also calm. Whatever happened, she would remain herself. By midday, the sun was high, and the world grew warmer. Simone gathered trash bags and recycling bins for the building. She loaded them into her car and drove to the curbside bins. As she returned to her car, she nearly ran into a sleek black motorcycle parked behind it. The rider wore a helmet and plain jacket, no club patches, as if to blend in. Simone gave a polite wave, and the rider nodded before steering away. She raised an eyebrow to see a lone bike here. She reminded herself not to be jumpy. Maybe it was just someone running errands. Back home, Simone prepared a simple lunch of vegetable soup and whole grain toast. She poured bowls for herself, and Mia, who chatted about making unicorn wings for her doll. Upstairs, the washer dinged, so Simone folded the remaining clothes and put them away. The apartment felt tidy, a welcome contrast to her busy work week. She wiped the counters and opened a window to let in a breeze scented with lilac. She hummed a soft tune as she worked, happy in small tasks. In the mid-afternoon lull, Simone sat on the couch to read a bit of her novella story about bravery and friendship. Mia played on the rug, arranging toy animals in a circle. The world felt gentle, a place of simple joys. Then, as Simone read, she sensed something shifting outside, the distant rumble of engines. Not at work, where bus motors rumbled, but deep. Low motorcycle growls. She paused, heart fluttering. The sound grew louder, closer. She closed her book and walked to the window. Down the street, a line of motorcycles appeared, their riders moving as one. Dozens of bikes, chrome shining, engines throbbing in perfect rhythm. They slowed to a stop at her curb. Simone's pulse raced, but she reminded herself to stay calm. She drew a deep breath and opened the window wider, letting the sound wash. Through the room, Mia ran to her side, wide-eyed. "Mama, what is that?" she whispered. Simone held her close and said, "Let's find out together." Moments later, the front doorbell rang, a hard, insistent knock. Simone's stomach fluttered, but she felt steady. She had practiced kindness, and so now she would practice courage. She guided Mia behind her, out of sight but close, enough to be safe. She smoothed her sweater and walked to the door. The knock came again, firm and certain. Simone reached for the knob, paused, and opened the door. On the porch stood Marcus LeBlanc, tall and steady in his denim jacket. Behind him, a half-circle of Hell's Angels in full patches formed a guard of honor. Their faces were open, respectful, not threatening. Marcus lifted his helmet under his arm, his silver hair at the temples glinting in the sun. He smiled with warmth. "Good afternoon, Simone," he said. The rumble of their engines softened to silence behind them. Simone felt her breath catch. Marcus's voice was calm. "I'm here to thank you, on behalf of all of us." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather patch, embroidered with a simple design and the words "Road Gratitude." He offered it to her. "We want you to have this." Simone looked from the patch to Marcus's eyes and felt tears prick. She shook her head, but he insisted, holding it gently out. "Please," he said. "It's for you." Simone's voice trembled. "I don't know what to say." She glanced at Mia, who peeked around her mother's legs. Marcus knelt to Mia's level.
"Hello there,"
he said softly. Mia stared wide out at the leather patch. Marcus smiled at her and then focused on Simone. "Your kindness reminded us why we ride and why we look out for each other. We want you to know you are part of our circle now." Behind him, the riders nodded, hands on hearts in salute. Simone felt the warmth of gratitude fill her chest. She accepted the patch, her fingers brushing Marcus's. She realized the porch had become a meeting place of two worlds, joined by respect and simple generosity. She felt proud, humbled, and deeply moved. "Thank you," she whispered. Meant it for Marcus, the bikers, and herself for having the courage to be kind in the first place. In that moment, engines rumbled back to life, but no one left. They waited with patience as Simone turned and called to Mia. The little girl stepped forward, eyes shining, lifted her into her arms and introduced her to Marcus. "This is my daughter, Mia." Marcus offered his hand. Mia shook it carefully, then smiled. The bikers softened, smiling at her innocence. Simone invited them onto the porch, and they sat on the steps together, sharing water bottles and quiet conversation. The roar of the motorcycles drifted away, leaving only the voices of new friends. Simone looked around at the circle of leather and denim and realized that her small act of paying for gas had created a bond stronger than steel. And so, on that bright spring afternoon, as engines cooled and conversation warmed the air, Simone learned that kindness could cross any boundary and that a simple smile could open the door to unexpected friendship. The porch felt warm as the last of the bikers settled into folding chairs and steps. The engines of their motorcycles idled softly, like gentle snoring in the midday sun. Simone sat on a wooden bench, Mia curled beside her, and Marcus sat across from them, holding two cool bottles of water. The other riders formed a loose semicircle, their patches gleaming in the light. No one seemed in a hurry to leave. Simone offered each rider water as Marcus passed the bottles around. Mia shyly held out her little hand and took one from Marcus, her eyes wide with wonder at the sea of leather jackets and roaring machines outside. Simone smiled at her daughter's amazement. "They're just like you and me," she said softly. "They have families, worries, joys. And they came here today because you showed kindness." Marcus nodded. "You helped me see that sometimes we forget our own humanity in the roar of the road," he said. "Your act reminded us all why we started riding, to be free, but also to be connected." He looked around at the riders. "We wanted to show our thanks, but more than that, we wanted to welcome you into our circle of respect." Simone felt warmth in her chest. She thought of her own small family, just her and me, and how big her world had grown in 2 days. She had gone from a simple bus driver to someone who had touched a fierce biker's heart and brought dozens of riders to her door, she realized. That kindness carried power far beyond what she had imagined. One rider, a woman named Rosie, with braided hair and a gentle voice, spoke up. "We often get a tough reputation," she said. "People think we only care about the club, don't see us as regular folks. You helped us remember that the world is full of kind strangers too." She smiled at Simone. "Thank you for that reminder." Simone felt tears prick her eyes. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Thank you for showing me kindness in return," she replied. "I never expected this, never dreamed of an invitation into the club. I only did what felt right." She glanced at Mia, who sipped her water and studied the chrome on a nearby bike. "I see now that kindness grows when we share it." The riders nodded and murmured agreement.
"Oh,
Then Marcus stood and offered Simone a firm handshake. "On behalf of every one of us," he said, "you have our respect and loyalty." His voice was strong but gentle. Simone shook his hand, feeling the calluses on his palm. It was a handshake that spoke of journeys taken together, of trust and bonds forged on endless roads. She realized that respect could be built in an instant, yet last a lifetime. Mia climbed onto Simone's lap and pointed at Marcus.
"Hank."
"You?" she said, her voice clear and sincere. Marcus knelt to her level, offering a toy patch he had pulled from his pocket. It was a small piece of fabric with a unicorn embroidered beside a tiny motorcycle. "For you?" he said. Mia's face lit up, and she accepted it with both hands. The riders around them chuckled at the thoughtful gift. Simone watched as Mia pressed the patch to her heart. She thought about the future, how this moment would be a story Mia might tell her friends one day, about the time a group of bikers came to their porch to say thank you. She felt grateful for the unexpected lessons of the past days, that small acts mattered, that barriers could be broken by kindness, and that friendship could bloom in the most unlikely places. As the sun climbed higher, Marcus called for attention. "We should be on our way," he said. "But before we go, we want to leave something more." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded flag, the Hells Angels Club banner. "This is a symbol of our unity," he explained. He held it gently. "We want to leave it with you, Simone, so you know you are part of our family now. If you ever need help, day or night, you have us." Simone's throat tightened. She took the flag carefully, feeling its weight and the smooth fabric beneath her fingers. She looked at Marcus, then at the riders. I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Thank you from the bottom of my heart." She wrapped the flag around her shoulders, as if draping herself in their goodwill. One by one, the riders stood, lifted their helmets, and saluted Simone and Mia. Then they filed out quietly, leaving only the hum of engines as they fired up and rolled down the street in perfect formation. Simone watched them go, the rumble fading into distance until only silence remained. She stood on the porch, the flag still around her, and felt a calm joy wash over her. Mia tugged at her dress. "Mama, can I keep the unicorn patch?" she asked. Simone knelt and hugged her daughter. "Of course," she said. "And we can put it on your backpack so you always remember today." Mia grinned, and Simone felt a surge of love stronger than ever. Inside the apartment, Simone carefully folded the flag and placed it on the top shelf of the living room cabinet, where she kept special things. She sat Mia at the small table and helped her stick the unicorn patch onto her pink backpack. Mia beamed and gave Simone a big hug. "I love you, Mama," she said. Simone held her close and whispered, "I love you too, sweetheart." That evening, Simone cooked a simple meal while Mia played on the rug beside her feet, her unicorn drawings scattered around. Simone's mind revisited the day's events. She thought of the riders' stories, of their laughter and respect, of the gift of the flag. She realized a simple choice to help another person at a gas pump had changed her life and theirs. After dinner, as Mia slept, Simone sat at the kitchen table and wrote in her journal. She described the porch meeting, her feelings of surprise and gratitude, and the lessons she learned, that kindness could form unexpected bonds, that respect could cross lines drawn by fear or misunderstanding, and that a generous heart could open doors to a larger family. She ended her entry with a promise to herself, to continue choosing kindness no matter the cost. Before bed, Simone called her mother and shared the story. Her mother gasped in wonder at the arrival of the bikers and the gifts they had given. "I'm so proud of you," her mother said, her voice full of warmth. Simone smiled at the memory of her mother's voice, feeling the connection across miles. Lying in bed, wrapped in the soft glow of the reading lamp, Simone thought of tomorrow. She would drive the bus, pick up Mia from daycare, and do her chores. But now she carried something more, a flag of unity on the shelf. A daughter's pride in a unicorn patch, and her own heart uplifted by the knowledge that kindness mattered deeply. She knew that when she woke in the morning, she would remember the rumble of engines, the gleam of chrome, and the faces of strangers who had become friends. As sleep claimed her, Simone dreamed of open roads stretching toward the horizon, of bikers riding side by side in harmony, and of a world made better by small acts of kindness. In her dream, she rode on a gentle blue motorcycle with Mia in front, both of them laughing as the wind carried them forward into a bright, hopeful dawn.